Grand Island, Nebraska, summer 2010 to 2011. On a private 1,000-yard range near Grand Island, Nebraska, ballistician Dave Emery and writer Mike Duke Venturino line up original World War II sniper rifles. A British No. 4 MKIT in .303 with a No. 32 3.5x scope and a U.S. M1903A4 in .3006 with a Weaver 330C 2.5x scope. Using period military ammunition pressure tested in the lab, they fire 3-shot groups from 300 to 600 yards, carefully recording group size and point of impact. Mechanically, the rifles show they can group well under 2 MOA with good ammunition. Yet the test notes that wind drift certainly made some groups larger, and that most scopes are not capable of doing serious dialing for windage adjustments. In Emery's assessment, American and British snipers in World War II were effectively limited to about 400 yards unless they encountered unusually good ammunition. The contrast is stark. Rifles and optics capable of hitting at 600 to 800 yards, but crosswinds, not the actions or barrels, pushing bullets a meter off target. On 20 September 1943, the U.S. War Department publishes TM 9-270, U.S. Rifle, Cal .30, M1903A4, snipers, formally defining the characteristics and operation of the new sniper variant and its telescopic sight. The manual arrives in field units as thick booklets, their pages filled with exploded diagrams, sight adjustments, and ballistic tables. Officers scan the figures. Armorers study the mounting instructions. Training cadres prepare firing programs. The technical profile is straightforward. The M1903A4, Springfield pattern, 24-inch barrel, approximately 8.7 pounds, 5-round magazine, chambered in .30-06 Springfield, fitted with Weaver 330C 2.5x scope. The rifle is designed solely for scoped use. No iron sights remain. The British counterpart, the No. 4 MKIT, uses selected Lee Enfield No. 4 rifles with fitted cheekpiece and No. 32 3.5x scope, chambered in .303 British. The ballistic figures are printed in neat columns. Standard .303 Menk 7. Saddleball, 174-grain bullet at approximately 2,440 to 2,500 feet per second. Maximum range on the order of 3,000 yards. The .30-06 M2 ball, 150-grain bullet at about 2,800 feet per second. Maximum range exceeding 3,500 yards. Yet wind, always wind, remains the unspoken adversary. Modern ballistic data for representative .30 Sauron 6 loads show a 10-mile-per-hour full-value wind causing roughly 18 to 20 inches drift at 500 yards and around 39 inches at 600 yards, comparable to or exceeding the width of a human torso. Range tests, including Emery's 2011 work, confirm these rifles can group within 2 to 3 MOA, enough to hit a 20-inch target at 500 yards. But crosswinds alone can shift the whole group off target at longer ranges. TM 9-270 describes the system as intended to deliver accurate fire on selected targets at long ranges, but provides no dedicated wind drift tables specific to the scope. The hardware is capable. The missing link is practically usable wind correction in the field. The procurement numbers tell a story of scale. By late 1943, Remington has begun production runs that will eventually yield approximately 28,365 M1903A4 rifles. Across the Atlantic, British armories convert between 23,000 and 26,000 No. 4 rifles into the T sniper variant. Approximately 30,000 No. 32 scopes are produced during the war. On both sides of the Atlantic, commanders expect these rifles to restore the long-range precision lost in the rushed mobilizations of 1939 to 1941. Staff planners assume that attaching optics to accurate rifles will automatically extend effective range. The manuals say it. The specifications promise it. Reality whispers otherwise. By late 1943, both sides of the Atlantic had rifles accurate enough for 600-yard work, but no easy way to translate a 10-mile-per-hour crosswind into a repeatable scope adjustment. In June 1942, the British War Office issues Small Arms Training, Volume 1, Pamphlet No. 3. Rifle, a revised manual for the Lee Enfield, including sections on the No. 4 sniper rifle. The document, in its modern scanned form, runs to 130 megabytes. Its pages cover maintenance, aiming, firing instruction, and the integration of telescopic sights. Instructors at Warminster and divisional ranges read it carefully. The British Army reconstitutes sniper instruction under the School of Infantry and divisional sniper cadres, building on World War I expertise. The work of H. Hesketh Pritchard, who insisted on regulated rifles and telescopic sights during the Great War, remains institutional memory. In one documented World War I exercise, properly regulated rifles achieved 27 hits in 48 shots on a head target at 430 yards. No. 4 to T, production climbs into the tens of thousands, with modern estimates placing the total between 23,000 and 26,000 rifles. Around 30,000 No. 32 scopes are produced during the war. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. adopts the M1903A4 as its primary sniper rifle in 1943. Total production by Remington, approximately 28,000 to 29,000 rifles. Sniper training is folded into infantry schools, with local sniper programs established in divisions and airborne units. The culture is different, less centralized, more unit-specific, but the hardware is comparable. Doctrinal guidance on both sides follows similar lines. British small arms training and application of fire pamphlets teach range estimation and generic wind allowances, stressing that it is the firer's duty to consider wind effects. US FM series and TM 9270 do likewise, but provide only theoretical examples, not locally verified tables for specific ranges. The manuals explain that shooters should judge wind, convert it to a fraction of a 90-degree full-value wind, then apply a correction in minutes of angle or sight graduations. British No. 32 MKOD scopes use 2 MOA clicks with about 16 MOA available either side. The No. 32 MK2, introduced 23 April 1943, switches to 1 MOA clicks for elevation and windage. USTM 9-270 explains the Weaver 330C's quarter MOA adjustments, but stresses the importance of correct base alignment and mechanical zero, effectively limiting how freely troops are expected to dial wind under field conditions. Senior staffs assume that issuing accurate rifles and manuals will automatically restore effective sniping. In practice, units must rebuild skills largely from the ground up. Emery records his father, a 101st Airborne Division veteran, saying he had data to 500 yards, but never would have considered taking a shot beyond 200 yards against someone who could shoot back, despite a scoped rifle. By 1944, thousands of scoped rifles are in service. Yet the first unit reports and memoirs hint that training materials have not solved the problem that matters most beyond 300 yards. Crosswind uncertainty. British application of fire pamphlets issued in 1942 devote a section to wind, instructing riflemen to read flags, foliage, and mirage, then estimate wind strength in points or fractions of a full-value crosswind. The instructions are methodical. Watch the flag, note the angle, observe vegetation, study heat shimmer on the range. Convert observations into corrections. Doctrine on both sides teaches that the shooter should judge wind, convert it to a fraction of a 90-degree wind, then apply a correction in minutes of angle or sight graduations. British No. 32. MKI scopes use 2 MOA clicks with about 16 MOA available either side. The number 32 Mk2, introduced 23 April 1943, switches to 1 MOA clicks for elevation and windage, offering finer control but also greater opportunity for error. USTM 9-270 explains the Weaver 330C's quarter MOA adjustments, but stresses the importance of correct base alignment and mechanical zero. The manual devotes entire paragraphs to ensuring that windage and elevation screws maintain full travel. The implication is clear: these controls are delicate, their settings critical. Field troops are expected to zero carefully and disturb those settings sparingly. The gap between manual and practice reveals itself in veteran accounts. Emery records his father, a 101st Airborne Division veteran, saying he had data to 500 yards, but never would have considered taking a shot beyond 200 yards against someone who could shoot back. The rifle was capable, the zero was good, but confidence in wind correction, especially under the stress of counterfire, simply was not there. Manuals suggest that with correct estimation and adjustment, long-range shots are feasible. Frontline soldiers behave as if their practical envelope is much shorter. The contrast is stark. Doctrine says precision at range is achievable. Veterans refuse those shots. Coarse or limited windage controls, coupled with no unit-specific drift data, leave shooters relying on rough judgment plus large safety margins. They avoid marginal shots in crosswinds. Better to pass on the opportunity than to reveal one's position with a miss. Better to engage at 200 yards with confidence than guess at 500. The training ranges produce good groups. Instructors certify marksmen. Armorers regulate rifles. But the practical question remains unanswered. How many clicks right for a 10-mile-per-hour wind at 450 yards with this rifle, this scope, this ammunition lot, in this valley? The manuals do not say. The field must find out. If doctrine says long-range precision is achievable, but veterans refuse those shots, where does the fix have to occur? In the rifle, the scope, or in the numbers they carry in their pocket? Emery and colleagues fire original World War II rifles, number 4T, M1903A4, Soviet 91/30 PU, on paper and steel from 100 to 1,000 yards, documenting group size and point of impact in varying winds. The rifles are originals, not reproductions. The ammunition is period military stock, pressure-tested in laboratory conditions before firing. The range is private, carefully surveyed, with steel targets at measured intervals. Good lots of ammunition and well-regulated rifles produce 2 to 3 MOA groups. But the horizontal wind component of those groups is often larger than the vertical drop component. The rifles are accurate. The wind, however, remains unpredictable. Some ammunition lots, especially 30-06 AP and certain 303 batches, show wide velocity spreads and poor grouping, standard deviations in velocity climb, groups open, corrections that worked with one lot fail with the next. Emery concludes that American and British snipers were very limited by the ammunition available to them, and that they likely did little serious work beyond approximately 400 yards. The absence of World War II hit probability data compounds the problem. There is little wartime statistical quantification of sniper hit rates at long range in Western armies. Later training and post-war analyses repeatedly identify wind misjudgment as the most common error source at extended distances. The rifle's inherent accuracy is sufficient. The combined effect of inconsistent ammunition and uncorrected wind makes the system unreliable at the distances where snipers are supposed to have an advantage. Modern ballistic modeling fills in the gaps. For typical 30-06 loads, a 10-mile-per-hour full-value wind causes roughly 18 to 20 inches drift at 500 yards. At 600 yards, drift climbs to around 39 inches, more than the width of a man's shoulders. The British 303 Mk 7 behaves similarly for its ballistic coefficient. These are not subtle errors. They are target width displacements. Emery's test notes document 3 shot groups at 600 yards that measure 10 to 18 inches vertically, but spread 25 to 30 inches horizontally when winds gust. The rifle is not the problem. The scope is not the problem. The problem is that no one at the firing line knows precisely how much that wind will push the bullet. The tests show that if wind can be quantified and corrected, these rifles can perform far beyond what many World War II users believed, putting the spotlight on how wartime units actually tried to tame the wind. Long before sniper schools, artillery units rely on printed firing tables, thick volumes listing elevation and drift for different charges, ranges, and meteorological conditions, updated as new guns and shells enter service. Gunners do not guess deflection, they calculate it. Meteorological messages arrive from forward observers. Wind speed, direction, temperature, pressure, all are converted into corrections using the tables. Deflection is set. Rounds fly. Firing tables and meteorological messages make crosswind compensation routine for artillery. The practice is old, refined over decades of siege and field warfare. Range cards and sector sketches are standard for machine gun teams, who pre-record distances and settings for key reference points. A machine gun crew knows the exact range to the road junction, the tree line, the hilltop. They write it down. They sketch it. When a target appears, they do not estimate. They refer. The conceptual dope chart for rifles, tabulating bullet drop and wind drift versus distance, is a scaled-down version of artillery practice. Data on previous engagements. The name is modern, but the idea is ancient. Write down what worked. Refer to it next time. Pre-war sniper doctrine, including Hesketh Pritchard's World War I training, already hints at systematic log-keeping for telescopic-sighted rifles, though not yet in the modern standardized card format. Hesketh Pritchard insisted that men must understand and believe in their telescopic-sighted rifles. Belief built on repeated measured proof. In one World War I exercise, properly regulated rifles achieved 27 hits in 48 shots on a head target at 430 yards. The rifles were regulated. The distances were known. The results were recorded. The contrast is clear. Heavy weapons already treat wind as a numeric problem solved by tables and instruments. Individual riflemen are still expected to do their own mental conversions under stress. Artillery. Corrections are printed and laminated. Rifle corrections live in the shooter's head and often do not survive the chaos of combat. Once artillery-style thinking is applied to rifles, the idea of a simple, local ballistic card becomes obvious, a way to pre-compute corrections and remove guesswork from the firing line. The technology to tabulate wind effects has existed for decades. The real question is which small unit leaders first decided to apply that logic to their own No. 4T and M1903A4. On British sniper courses, rows of No. 4T rifles fire from standardized firing points at scaled figure targets. Instructors and armorers record scores, 0 adjustments, and observed corrections on forms and in notebooks. The range is permanent. The distances are surveyed. The targets are consistent. Over weeks and months, patterns emerge. Standardized issue of No. 4T rifles, No. 32 scopes, and 303 Mk7 ball ammunition provides the inputs. Fixed range layouts with clearly surveyed distances provide the framework. Armorers skilled in regulating rifles and logging settings provide the continuity. The infrastructure for empirical ballistic data is in place. Instructors fire multiple groups at 200, 300, 400, 500 yards in typical local winds, noting the average windage correction in clicks or reticle width required to center groups. Over time, they accumulate empirically derived corrections for common wind strengths and directions on that range. The corrections are specific. 10 mph left to right wind at 400 yards, 3 clicks right on the No. 32 Mk2. 15 mph quartering wind at 500 yards, 4 clicks right, 1 click up. A 2003 article on Duke of Wellington's regiment snipers describes pairs with No. T rifles compiling detailed range cards on a 1,000-meter range, building up precise knowledge of their rifle's behavior. The article explicitly echoes World War II equipment and practices. The continuity is clear. Official pamphlets teach wind in general terms. These local cards capture how a specific rifle, scope, ammunition lot, and valley wind behave together. The contrast matters. A textbook might say, allow 1 MOA per 10 miles per hour of full value wind per 100 yards. The local card says, at this firing point with these rifles, in the prevailing afternoon breeze, dial 4 clicks right at 500 yards. One is theory, the other is proven. Once such cards exist, they can be reproduced and issued within the cadre. Instructors type them, students copy them, armorers tape them to stocks. The data moves from one notebook into many hands. By the end of the war, some British sniper sections are effectively using bespoke ballistic tables tailored to their rifles and ranges, even though no War Office pamphlet yet prints the phrase dope card. In U.S. training camps, racks of new M1903A4 rifles stand in armories while instructors leaf through TM 9.270 and TM 9.1270, extracting ballistic and sight information to use on local ranges. The manuals are comprehensive. Tables of muzzle velocities for M1 and M2 ball, maximum ranges, sight graduations, detailed instructions on aligning bases and maintaining full windage and elevation travel on the Weaver 330C. The data is all there. Muzzle velocity, approximately 2,805 feet per second for M2 ball. Maximum range, over 3,500 yards. Sight adjustments, quarter MOA per click. The numbers are precise, laboratory verified, printed in neat columns. But the manuals do not print a ready-made wind card. They provide the ingredients. The field must bake the bread. Instructors convert those tables plus observed impacts into simple distance versus clicks notes. 300 yards plus 3 clicks elevation. 10 mile per hour left to right wind, 3 clicks right. They write these notes on cardboard taped to the stock or in notebooks carried in the range shack. Repeated field firing allows refinement. Corrections are adjusted until they consistently place groups on center at each range in local conditions. Later, FM 2310 and Sniper Data Book guides formalize the practice of building tactical range cards and observation logs based on previous engagements and doctrinal firing tables. The documents show how ad hoc World War II practices later became standard. What begins as improvisation ends as doctrine. TM 9270 never prints a ready-made wind card, but the combination of its data and range results effectively forces instructors to create their own if they want students to apply corrections quickly. The alternative, mental math under stress, proves unreliable. Better to write it down, better to test it, better to trust the card than guess. By VE Day, some U.S. sniper schools have, in practice, created the first generation of American rifle dope cards, even though the phrase will only become common in later decades. The hardware is standardized. The ammunition is mass-produced. But the local corrections, those precious numbers scribbled on cardboard, are handcrafted, range by range, instructor by instructor. On a semi-static front in Italy, a sniper NCO records in pencil on a small card the holds his men needed to hit an exposed observation post across a valley whenever the afternoon wind rises. The official tables do not show these values. His notebook does. Corporals and sergeants run firing points. They supervise zero checks. They see patterns and misses. Shots consistently blown into the same patch of hillside when winds come from a certain direction. Rounds drifting left at 400 yards, but right at 600, terrain funneling wind in unexpected ways. They are close enough to the shooters and terrain to recognize that textbook corrections are not matching local reality. Modern doctrinal continuity confirms the importance of this role. Later, sniper literature and field manuals emphasize the importance of sniper data books, range cards, and observation logs, all maintained by the shooter and spotter pair. These documents record not only hits, but conditions, including wind and corrections that worked. The crazy card earns its name. Local cards sometimes contradict printed ballistic tables because they incorporate idiosyncratic factors, coastal winds, valley gusts, ammunition lot variations, and particular combinations of rifle and scope. To outsiders, the numbers look wrong. To the section that created them, they are the only numbers that consistently produce hits. A corporal tapes his card to the inside of his notebook cover. Another writes his on the back of a range sketch. A third memorizes his and recites it to new replacements. 400 yards, sea breeze, dial 2 right. 500, dial 4. 600, don't shoot unless you have to. The methods vary. The principle does not. Write down what works. These corporals convert a vague concept, allow for wind, into a set of hard numbers, specific enough that any trained sniper in the section can use them under stress. The process is informal. There are no official forms. No staff officer reviews the cards. But the sections that maintain them see results. In after-action reports, these cards are rarely mentioned by name, but the improvement they bring, long-range first-round hits in difficult wind, shows up in the one metric that matters: more enemy observers and snipers neutralized at distance. Emery's test notes show tight 3-shot groups with World War II rifles at 300 to 600 yards and margins of wind-induced miss at 600 yards that are larger than many battlefield targets. The data is unambiguous. The rifles work, the wind wins, baseline numbers tell the story. In 10-mile-per-hour crosswinds, a typical 30-bow-6 load drifts approximately 18 to 20 inches at 500 yards and approximately 39 inches at 600 yards. The 303 Memca 7 shows similar behavior for its ballistic coefficient. Rifle and scope accuracy, 2 to 3 MOA, corresponds to approximately 10 to 18 inches at 600 yards. Smaller than the wind error if uncorrected. A local wind card built from repeated observation can reduce mean wind error from several MOA to perhaps 1 MOA or less, allowing the shooter's group to remain on or near the target center. The mathematics is straightforward. Without correction, the mean point of impact is offset by the full wind drift. With correction, the mean shifts back to the aim point. The group size remains the same. The group location changes. Practically, this shifts a shot from likely miss to probable hit whenever conditions match the card's assumptions. If a sniper dials the card's correction for a 10-mile-per-hour wind at 500 yards, his shots will cluster within 2 to 3 MOA of the center, a torso-sized group. Without the card, they cluster 2 to 3 MOA around, a point 20 inches to the side, a complete miss. Quantitatively, local cards convert a high-variance system, shots spread widely in wind, into a lower-variance one. The battle is then fought against remaining uncertainties: gusts, mirage, shooter error. Not against an unknown mean drift. The same rifles that Western veterans considered 200 to 300-yard tools become, with good data, reliable 400 to 600-yard instruments, simply because the wind is finally in the notebook instead of only in the firer's head. The difference is not new hardware. The difference is recorded knowledge. In Normandy and later along the Maas and Rhine, Allied snipers are tasked with watching road junctions, river crossings, and tree lines, terrain where engagement ranges often stretch beyond 300 yards. The mission requires patience, precision, and pre-planning. Snipers establish semi-permanent posts. They draw range sketches. They note typical wind directions, sea breeze, valley winds, over days. They integrate wind holes into these sketches. Church spire, 420 yards. 10 mile per hour left to right wind, 4 clicks right. Road junction, 510 yards. Same wind, 6 clicks right, 1 click up, simplifying decisions when a fleeting target appears. Post-war British and NATO manuals on sniping and direct-fire weapons formalize range cards and sector sketches as standard products, indicating that such practices were already in place informally during late World War II. The modern range card, with its careful annotation of landmarks, distances, and reference points, descends directly from these wartime sketches. Memoirs and after-action reports highlight improved effectiveness of dedicated sniper sections in 1944 to 45 compared to early war efforts. Early war Allied sniping was sporadic and often ineffective at long range. By 1944 to 45, carefully trained and better documented sniper teams could reliably interdict enemy movement across open ground. The use of local cards and sketches allows snipers to apply wind and range corrections instantly. A German observer appears at the tree line. The sniper glances at his sketch. 530 yards. Prevailing wind is 10 miles per hour from the coast. Card says 6 clicks right. He dials. He fires. The observer falls. A few seconds of exposure is enough time for a first-round hit rather than a hasty guess. The difference between revealing position with a miss and completing the mission with one shot. Though no Allied staff officer issues a memo celebrating win cards, the steady increase in long-range sniping effectiveness in late 1944 and 1945 coincides with their quiet spread through trained sections. In 1946, the British War Office publishes Small Arms Training, Volume 1, Pamphlet No. 28, Sniping, Capturing Wartime Lessons on Selection, Fieldcraft, Observation, and Shooting. The pamphlet is thin compared to the wartime equipment manuals, but its impact is lasting. Post-war British pamphlets stress the importance of recording range, wind, light, and mirage, and of keeping notebooks of corrections for particular rifles and positions. The language is formal, but the meaning is clear. Every sniper must maintain detailed records. U.S. manuals, such as later editions of FM 23-10 and sniper training circulars, institutionalize sniper data books, tactical range cards, and observation logs, explicitly instructing snipers to log conditions and successful corrections. Hardware continuity reinforces doctrinal continuity. The British L-42A1, introduced around 1970 by rechambering No. 4T rifles to 7.6 Ska 51 mm NATO, remains in service into the early 1990s, including in the Falklands War. It is always operated as part of a system that includes range and wind data. The rifle may change caliber. The practice does not. What began as unrecorded NCO improvisation becomes a formal expectation. No sniper is considered properly trained without accurate, locally validated ballistic records. The crazy cards of 1944 become the data books of 1970. The corporal's notebooks become institutional doctrine. The success of those wartime local cards feeds forward into doctrine, ensuring that future snipers no longer need to rediscover empirically what their predecessors already proved under fire. Lessons are codified. Training is standardized. The improvisation is replaced by procedure. By 1970, the notion of operating a sniper rifle without a data book and range card is doctrinally unacceptable, an implicit admission that World War II practice had once fallen short in that respect. The gap is acknowledged. The fix is permanent. An overview table lists approximate production, approximately 28,000 M1903A4s, built between 1943 and 44. Some 23,000 to 26,000 No. 4T rifles converted. Their combined service lives stretching from World War II through Korea and well into the Cold War. Accurate rifles and optics alone did not guarantee long-range lethality. Locally built wind and range cards converted that potential into actual hit probability in real weather. Even modest increases in effective engagement range from 200 to 300 yards to 400 to 500 yards under crosswinds had disproportionate tactical value in counter-sniper and observation post roles. Contemporary sniper manuals across NATO emphasize dope charts, data books, and range cards as routine tools. Ballistic calculators now complement, rather than replace, the basic practice of recording what worked on that rifle in that place. The technology advances. The principle endures. World War II, NCO improvisation, and post-war codification contributed directly to a global standard. Long-range precision is treated as a data-driven problem, not as an art left to individual intuition. Every sniper school teaches the same lesson. Write it down. Test it. Trust the data. The L-42A1, serving from 1970 into the early 1990s, carries the No. 4T's legacy forward. Rechambered to 7.62 Kex 51mm NATO, fitted with modern optics, it serves in Northern Ireland, the Falklands, and countless training ranges. When it finally retires, replaced by purpose-built precision rifles, it leaves behind a doctrinal tradition stronger than any single weapon. The rifles that many World War II veterans considered 200-yard weapons created a doctrinal tradition that now underpins precision engagements out to 800 to 1,000 meters. The hardware changed, the lesson stayed. With the retirement of the L-42A1 in the early 1990s and the end of M19903A4 service decades earlier, none of the original hardware remains on frontline duty. But their doctrine's descendants remain in every modern sniper school. The chain is clear. World War II, accurate rifles and scopes, generic wind doctrine, and widespread reluctance to attempt long shots in crosswinds. Wartime innovation. Corporals and instructors compile local wind cards from live fire, turning cross-gust behavior into simple tables. Post-war, those practices are absorbed into small arms training pamphlets, FM 23-10, and modern sniper manuals as non-negotiable elements of training. No single corporal's name is preserved as the inventor of the wind card. Instead, the innovation is collective, the product of many NCOs unwilling to accept unexplained misses. Their solution was not a new rifle or scope, but a small piece of card covered in empirically checked numbers. Every serious sniper course now requires its students to prove they can build and use their own dope and range cards. Modern data books include sections for range cards, tactical sketches, observation logs, and ballistic tables. Students are graded on their ability to maintain these records. The habit is ingrained. The rifles evolved. Bolt actions gave way to semi-automatics. Fixed power scopes gave way to variables. Manually calculated corrections gave way to ballistic calculators. But the underlying principle, that precision at range depends on recorded, local empirical data, never changed. By the end of the 20th century, every serious sniper course required its students to prove they could build and use their own dope and range cards. The World War II lesson was clear. Victory in the wind belonged not to the best rifle, but to the units that bothered to write down what the wind actually did.